One of the most challenging things when we start playing guitar is chord changes. Our hands have to start doing weird things they've never done before. And this learning process can be quite tedious and frustrating. So today I want to share with you some tips that can help you make faster chord changes. Let's get started. Tip number 1, warm up. How many times have you seen a professional athlete that doesn't warm up before a competition? Warming up is extremely important. When our muscles are cold, they are unprepared for tasks they are not used to, and even the ones they are used to, they can perform way better when our muscles are warm. Warming up draws blood to our fingers, allowing our muscles to move more easily and with greater precision. This may sound like irrelevant or unnecessary advice, but I sincerely challenge you to warm up properly and then play. There is a huge difference. If you'd like me to go over a couple of exercises you can do to warm up, leave me a comment below. Also, if you like videos about guitars, gear, guitar lessons, and more, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. You can also follow me on Instagram at @ancoca, and you can also listen to my band called Chasing Echoes on Spotify. I left you a link in the description. Tip number 2, constant practice. And I know what you're thinking. Yeah, I know I have to practice. That's nothing new. But just hear me out. When we learn something, our brain is creating new connections, new ways to transmit information. And think of it as a path on the grass, right? You've seen that on a park when people start walking over the grass and then you see a path. It's exactly the same when you are learning something. In this case, we'll apply to the guitar. If you only walk that path once a week, you're never going to see the path. It's always going to be grass, right? But if you walk that path every single day several times, then slowly you're going to start to see the path, and then you can clearly quite define where you have to walk. It's exactly the same with your brain. If you want to see improvements faster, I recommend practicing as often as possible, and it is much better to practice 15-20 minutes every day than 3 or 4 hours once a week. Consistent and structured repetition is key. Tip number 3, take your time. The famous saying goes, Rome wasn't built in a day. The best way to get to do something fast is to go slow. Do not rush. Don't try changing chords quickly at the start. Go slow and then increase your speed little by little. If you start increasing the speed and it sounds bad, then slow down until it sounds good, and then try increasing the speed a little. I know that it is annoying and frustrating AF, but the results speak for themselves. If you're learning a song and you're trying to play directly with the song on Spotify, right? You're trying to get the chords right and you're rushing it. That's not gonna be helpful for you. Then stop the song, check the chords, and then practice those chord changes slowly, right? When you notice, okay, I got those chord changes, they're sounding clean, then you start adding a little bit of speed, right? You go faster and faster and faster, and when it sounds not clean anymore, then you go back, practice again, take a look at which chord changes are being the most difficult ones for you from a song or from any chord change that you're practicing currently, and then take a moment to analyze what you're doing, do it slow, and move to the next chord, then increase the speed. Tip number 4, practice the positions without strumming. So just take a moment to analyze the positions you are making, where your fingers go. Just spend some time taking a look at your left hand and what it's doing. For example, let's say you're playing the C chord, right? And you want to do the change from the C chord to the F chord. So what you're going to do is, without using your right hand, or in the case of the lefties, well, your left hand, what you're going to do is you analyze the chord and you can actually say it out loud. My ring finger is on the 5th string on the 3rd fret, my middle finger is on the 4th string on the 2nd fret, and my index finger is on the 2nd string on the 1st fret. And when I want to move to the F chord, when I want to go there, then I'm going to think, okay, I need for my index finger to make a bar on the 1st fret, and I do that movement. Then I think, okay, my middle finger has to move down 1 string to the 3rd string on the 2nd fret. My ring finger can stay where it is. That's also very important that you know which fingers you don't necessarily have to lift up. And my pinky finger is gonna go on the 4th string on the 3rd fret. And you don't strum it yet. You just practice that movement. Just try to get that in. After a couple of times, then strum the chord once. Check that everything is clean and all the notes that are supposed to be ringing are ringing. Then you go to the next chord and you do the same. And you check that everything is ringing the way it's supposed to. And then you practice again. And I know it might sound absurd or dumb to do this, but it really works. Trust me, it really works. So give it a chance. Tip number 5. Start with the simple and easy chord changes. We all know that there are changes that are much easier to make than others. I recommend starting with those. For example, the change from C to A minor. This is a very simple change because we only have to move one finger. In this case, our ring finger is going from the 3rd fret, the 5th string, to the 3rd string on the 2nd fret. And just like this, there are a lot of other chord changes that are way easier than going, from example, from a C to an F, right? That it's more complicated at the beginning. So start with those changes. They're gonna help you to be a little bit more motivated, to feel better about yourself, and then you're gonna have a little bit more of, will to practice, will to keep going. So start with those, because if you start with the really complicated ones, you're gonna get frustrated. You'll be like, no, screw this, I don't want to do this anymore. And then you just leave the instrument on the side, and that's not the idea, right? Tip number 6, use a metronome. Once you have a couple of positions down and the changes are starting to sound more coherent, I recommend using a metronome to keep the changes in time. Using a metronome can be very frustrating. Actually, it is really frustrating, I'm not gonna lie, but it is as important as it is frustrating. There are 2 things, in my opinion, 2 broad major things that make a musician suck: playing out of tune and playing out of time. Both are key to playing well. The important thing here is to try and do the chord changes at different tempos, different beats per minute. We're looking for a tempo that is slightly challenging, but we still feel comfortable with. Once we find that tempo, we practice the changes until they sound smooth and on time, on the beat. We then increase 5 or 10 BPM and try again. If it sounds good, we keep going up with the tempo, and if it doesn't sound good, and let's be honest, we should all know when it doesn't sound good, we have to keep practicing at that tempo until we get the hang of it. Tip number 7, short breaks during practice. If you have the opportunity to practice for an hour every day or 2 hours, or you have a session where okay, now I can sit down and practice for 3 hours, that's great, but take care of your body. At the beginning, when we're starting to play, we're highly motivated, right? And we are dealing with some pain. We are dealing with some pain on the tips of our fingers, and also some pain here on the hand, or sometimes here the fingers might feel a little bit tired, if you want to call it that way. So what I suggest you is that while you're practicing, take small breaks. So you practice half an hour, then take a 5-minute break, and during those 5 minutes, just stretch your hands, something like this, something like this. You can also stretch individual fingers. You can also use your thumb to just rub your hand, something like this, right? And then go back to practicing. That way you're gonna keep your hands loose, do it on both hands, of course, and then you're just gonna keep them loose and avoid injuries. I already had an overuse injury on my ring finger on the left hand, and it sucks. So just be careful. And well, those are all the tips for today. If you like this video, don't forget to like it. If you know someone who might want to watch this video because they're playing guitar, just share it with them, and see you next time. Bye.